What's up, guys? Thanks for hanging out with me today. So many of you have asked me a ton of questions about how I set up all the different mods for my Colorado XT pontoon boat. So I'm going to bring you some few things today. Basically today we're going to talk about the fish finder, or the depth finder, how specifically to mount the transducer and the actual unit itself. I'm going to walk you all around it and show you what I did and how I did it. There's a lot of messing with PVC that I did as far as melting and forming. Obviously, I'm not going to do that for you, but as I explain it to you, use your imagination, you'll be able to figure out. So let's get this thing down. Well, I bet you not too many of you have a shop as big or as tall as mine to hang your pontoon boat up, but I found it's basically the best way to do it. The other way of hanging a pontoon boat is, well, not hanging it at all. And you can look at my son's up there, up on top of that little room we built up there. And I mean, it's basically just deflated and taken apart and putting up there. But, you know, when I use it during the summer, I'm using it all the time. And I don't want to deal with having to inflate and deflate and put everything back together again, because like I said in a previous video that you might have watched, it takes about 1,000 years to set up anyway. So let me take you underneath the pontoon and show you how I hook that transducer up. All right, here we're coming over here to the underside of the pontoon boat. And what you're gonna see is that the transducer mount, which is located right here, here's the transducer, is in an upright position right now. I'm gonna get to that in a little bit here. But in order to show you first how I mounted the transducer to the mount, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this thing out, and then I twist it. You can see this. I twist it that way, and then it's, boom, it's in position for go ahead and using it. But let's go ahead and take a look at how I got this transducer mounted. This is your standard transducer off of the particular fish finder I have, which is a Garmin Striker 4 with a contour mapping. It's a smaller job. And what I have done is I've mounted it into this PVC apparatus that ends up being the mounting unit. This was opposed to putting it on the trolling motor. What you're also going to notice here on this pipe is, even though it looks black, it's actually electrical conduit, PVC electrical conduit. And I use that simply because it has the UV protection built in, even though I painted it so that it could be the same color, you know, as the undercarriage. I mean, I'm not trying to win a beauty contest, but I would love for it to look nice. So let me get to this part right here, because this is probably the trickiest part, and this is what's going to save you a lot of time just to watch this video and show you how I did it. So what I did is I took this, I think it's 1 or 1 1/4 inch PVC. I painted over it, so I can't remember. What I did is I took this transducer, and you're gonna see how I have this bolted into this pipe. Well, how I'm able to do that is this mount comes up and it comes around into a circle. There's a hole in the middle of that mount that's got the teeth on it, so you can ratchet this thing this way and that way. And so what I did is I took the end of this PVC, I heated it up with a propane torch. Man, it's best not to use a propane torch. Things tend to light on fire. So if you have a heat gun, use a heat gun. But I got this thing nice and sloppy, like a wet noodle, and I took the transducer and I just shoved up in there until I achieved a right angle, or at least what was as close as I could to a right angle. So anyway, once I got it in enough to where I had enough purchase to be able to drill a hole through the PVC that wasn't real close to the edge here, but was up a little farther, I went ahead and drilled a hole through the pipe and then inserted, and this is all stainless because, you know, I think I was smart in that. This is a stainless machine screw with a stainless nylon locking nut in order to hold it all in place. Okay, you got that? So after that, what I did is all of this wire goes up into here. Now, it's important to know that there is just a ton of wire in this pipe right here because, you know, it's a fish finder transducer, so the wire needs to be long to be able to get from the steering wheel or the front of the boat all the way to the back of the boat where you typically mount the transducer. So this particular pipe right here, this is where all of the extra wire is, all the extra transducer wire. So I you know, wrapped it like this, and then I, as gently as I could, I shoved it all down in there. So let me get you to this joint here, because this is where the magic happens as far as it being able to move it around, to tuck it up out of the way when you're transporting it, or to put it down when you're sitting in your chair and in your pontoon and going. So what you're going to see is this particular pipe, whatever size it is, again, I think it's a 1 or a 1 1/4 inch PVC, goes up into this elbow, and this elbow is not glued. That's one of the things about this, folks, is that you don't glue any of this stuff right here, because you want it to move. Because the PVC, when you get it in there nice and tight, it is not going to go anything. It is not going to go anywhere when you're trotting around at 5 miles an hour or 3 miles an hour in a pontoon. Plus, if you end up hitting your transducer with a rock, which I've done before, this thing will just kick out of the way. And that way you don't bash your transducer to the point where it won't work anymore, but rather you have that flexibility. So you come up here to this joint, and again, it is not a it's not glued in. Then it goes into a real small piece of that same pipe from down here, and then that is fitted into another piece of PVC. Now what you're going to see here is this right here is the mount where if you have the transport wheel, which I believe is completely worthless, take that out. You don't need that. But you're gonna shove this pipe into this hole, and this thing will never come out, ideally. It's really, really tight. In fact, I think I needed to use a hammer on mine to get that set. And this thing will twist inside of it, but sometimes it just twists here at the nut. So again, if I wanted to put it up, all I do is move it up, and then I twist this thing to the side. And you see how close that comes up with the bottom of the frame? That is pretty sweet. It works so good. And when I'm sitting up in my chair, all I do is push it down, I twist it back into place, and while I'm sitting in my seat, I kind of wiggle and make sure everything's tight, and then I'm set for the rest of the day. I never have to worry about it at all unless I hit a rock, and then I have to go ahead, because it'll swing back if I hit a rock, so I'll have to take it and put it back down. But like I said, it doesn't break. And so that's good. So let's go around to the front of the boat. I'm going to twist this around, and we're going to take a look at the rest of the connections that make it all the way up to the display. Okay, so here we are at the front of the boat. What you're going to see here is how where I have this transducer, or I'm sorry, I keep saying transducer, where I have the actual display unit stored. And I keep it here permanently in my little pocket. So you're going to see that's the Garmin Striker 4, and the mounting plate I have to it is right here. Now this is a piece of FRP. If you don't know what that is, they typically use that. You'll see it in cheap commercial bathrooms or butcher shops or in grocery stores on the walls, because it's waterproof and it's cleanable. It's stinky to cut, but I had some left over from a little project I did. And what I did is I just used some small screws and mounted the mount up in there. And why I use this is because it's somewhat flexible, but it's really rigid. And how I mount this in here is with the pontoon nice and loose, not inflated all the way. I can just take this and shove it up in here, and then when I pump it up, this thing is immovable. You cannot move it. And then this thing just fits in like that and punches down and mounts. And you're going to see right here I have the power wire and the transducer wire coming out. So I'm going to walk you basically from the display all the way back to the transducer. So you're going to see that I have right here some black sprinkler pipe. It's like a mainline sprinkler pipe, so it's really flexible. And all I did is I cut a little notch out of that so I could just pinch it around this metal, and that keeps the wires from being loose. Ideally, you're going to set yourself up to where you're not going to snag your transducer wire and break it. And so I tried to keep everything as enclosed as possible. So I went from this sprinkler pipe that holds this transducer wire and the power wire close up so nothing snags on it, and then it feeds into what if I remember right, I think it was 1/2 inch PVC. So I go from an elbow into a 1/2 inch PVC. I ran this right along the rail here and just used black zip ties to be able to secure that. I came up all the way here to this crossbar where I was running the rest of my transducer wire. Again, another elbow, another zip tie right here. I don't know if, you know, I'm gonna zoom up on this, but this particular piece of pipe is flared out. And what I did is I took just the butt of a screwdriver and I heated this end up and I just squished it in there so that I would not have any sharp edges for this transducer wire. Again, these things are not just single strand wires, they're expensive to replace. So then after I ran it out this wire, this is the transducer wire, the power wire is right here, and I'll get to that in just a second. But this transducer wire went right through here into this elbow where I drilled an access hole for that wire to go down into. And like I told you, it's all folded in right here. All that extra transducer wire is folded here into this pipe. And then going around, you're gonna see the hole that I drilled here at the bottom of that pipe to be able to get the rest of that out. So you have to start from here and then work your way up and out that way. You can't work your way from your display back to your transducer. So let's take a look at this power wire. This is kind of an interesting thing I did. You got your standard power wire with a with your inline fuse here. And what I did in order to make it nice and easy on me is my trolling is I took the end, actually I think it's just bare wires if I remember right, and boy, this is impressive, right? I took an old phone charger, a broke phone charger that has a nice floppy cord, and I wired it up in there and skillfully, I might add, wrapped this baby in about 5 pounds of electrical tape. And you can see the quality job I did here. But I did that because when I get the battery up here in my basket, I wrap this thing up around the basket and it's basically locked into place. It's a real sweet setup. And in my trolling motor, I have a case with a cigarette lighter that it just plugs right in there and it's good to go. So, hey, you know, the video took a while, but hopefully that gave you all of the tool, all the information at least, and enough pictures and video to watch over and over again as you're trying to figure out how to do this yourself. But hey, winter's coming. This is the perfect time to get your pontoon really tricked out, really modded out in order to make your Colorado XT fishing machine. Again, I put a review for the Striker, the Garmin Striker 4 with a contour mapping. If you take a look at my channel, you'll be able to see it. It's a really quick, easy, it's not even a tutorial, it's just a quick run through what it looks like. But I highly recommend that particular fish finder, that particular model for a pontoon boat, depending on the kind of fishing you're gonna do. So again, hey, thanks for watching. Make sure you click subscribe, get that bell notification going so you can see all of the other fishing and adventure videos that I do, including more tutorials on how to modify your Colorado XT. Take care, you guys. See ya.